Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome to my second Things I Didn't Review video. This is going to be covering the new releases with regards to movies and music that I didn't get a chance to review, but I did either watch or listen to from June through August. And I'm only talking about the stuff that I didn't get a chance to talk about at all in any of my videos. If I were to just talk about everything, we'd be here all day. I'll be separating this into 4 separate categories. I'm going to do albums and then EPs. I didn't do the EPs thing last time, but this time I'm going to separate those two since they are different. I'll talk about movies and then TV shows. And I know I said this in my last Things I Didn't Review video, but I think I do want to do TV reviews at some point. I don't know when I'll start, but yeah, I think now I am a little bit more comfortable with trying to take that on. But yeah, with that said, let's get to it. Rising Visionary is the newest and the actually debut studio album from the band Crusade. The, I believe, lead guitarist for this band has a channel called Become the Night. You guys might know him. He also goes by Mike the Music Snob. I really like his channel a lot, so I'll leave a tag if you guys want to go follow him. But yeah, I thought I'd check out his band and how they are, and I gotta say, I was pleasantly surprised. I thought this was an not great album, definitely a flawed record for sure, but it did also have some big highs. I really liked the song Codename It. This was actually the, I think, lead single to the album, and it had Anthony from 10 Second Songs on the vocals. Great singer, I love his voice. Yeah, this song was kick-ass, definitely one of like the highlights of the album. Like I said, it's a flawed record for sure, but you know, they're getting their start, and I think this is overall a pretty decent start. From The Streets to The Sweets by Snoop Dogg. Wasn't huge on this one. Had a couple standout tracks. There was one, I believe it's called Gang Signs, that I thought was pretty good, and a nice shout out to Kobe and Gigi Bryant. I thought that was very sweet. But for the most part, just kind of bland and forgettable, with a couple standouts. And I like Snoop Dogg a lot as a rapper. His performance in the album really isn't bad. It's mainly just the beats they come up with and some of the lyrics that kind of underwhelmed me. Delta Kream, the newest album from the rock duo Black Keys. And the entirety of this album is all covers of these like kind of bluesy southern rock songs. And I really didn't care for this one as much either. I mean, sure, it has its moments where it's kind of enjoyable. I mean, I can definitely see myself if I drove trucks, or I can see like truck drivers like really, I guess, vibing with this while they're driving the trucks. You know, it's just that kind of music, that sort of hillbilly style. It has its moments, but for the most part, just not very interesting to me. And I think maybe the setting I was in, like I was just sitting in my room listening to it, taking notes. So maybe that has to do with my lack of enjoyment, but yeah, not too crazy about this one. Sour, the much anticipated debut album from Olivia Rodrigo, arguably the biggest solo artist making music today. And I really enjoyed this album. You know, like I briefly talked about in the VMAs video I made, I briefly talked about Olivia in that one. I really like her music, I love her voice, and the fact that she is as young as she is and able to write lyrics this mature is very impressive. Beyond just the hit singles, some other ones that stood out to me from the album were Jealousy, Jealousy. I also really liked One Step Forward, Three Steps Back. It's a really good debut album, and the future is certainly bright for her. Scaled and Icy by 21 Pilots. Over the years, I have kind of started to like them a bit more and grow more fond of their music. But I remember initially when they became popular, I really, at the time, disliked a lot of their hit songs. And honestly, this album just brought me right back to that time. And so for that reason, I really was not a fan of this album. However, I do like the lead single, Shy Away. I thought that was a pretty good and catchy song, and I like the opening track quite a bit. But yeah, most of this album just didn't care for. Just kind of bland, uninspired pop music. And I know most people don't really consider them to be pop, but I mean, at its core, that's pretty much what this album is. It's just a pop record. Of course, with influences of hip-hop and rock and electronic. The SS Krill, a new album from Billy Cobb. That's another YouTuber I like to watch. I talked about his self-titled album in the last video I made like this. In the description Billy gives for this album, let me just read it for you guys. A tale of home, yearning, booze, conflict, pride, and love. Johnny and Joel must come to an ultimatum to save their relationship as they sail across the Atlantic aboard the SS Krill. In parentheses, he puts a gay pirate opera. Definitely an intriguing title and synopsis for this album. All in all though, how's this album? Meh. It had a few tracks I liked. I definitely find the concept to be interesting. He definitely goes that full route. I mean, this is a pirate opera. This whole album is pretty much just pirate music, which I'm not the fan of, but there were a few tracks in here that I did like. But overall, I didn't dislike this album. Didn't really like it either. I think it's just because pirate music isn't really my bread and butter, so you know, it is an acquired taste, but I think that is an admirable acquired taste and an admirable effort. Also this year we had Maroon 5 making a trap album during a time when trap is pretty much kind of on its way out of mainstream music. But of course, since it's Maroon 5, since it's Adam Levine, it's gonna be huge, it's gonna be successful. And with that, we got the album JORDI. Don't really have much to say about this. I didn't like it. I did kind of like the song though that featured her. I thought that was a pretty good one. Yeah, I just got nothing else to say. I'm gonna move on. Hey guys, so I realized that I completely forgot to talk about No Gods, No Masters, which is the newest Garbage album. This was a surprisingly pretty decent album. Pretty good when you're considering just how long the band has been together. But I liked some of the themes this album took on, especially with regards to the topic of greed. And the instrumentals had a decent amount of variety to them. It did kind of start to lose me in the second half of the album, but all in all, this is definitely an okay album. And I think, especially if you are a Garbage fan, you might find some stuff to enjoy about it. Even if you're not, you still might get a little bit of enjoyment out of it, possibly. I checked out the new Lorde album, Solar Power, and this one was also just okay. I did like the singles leading up to it, even Mood Ring. Everyone hates that song for some reason. I liked it, personally. I don't really get the hate over it. Although granted, normally lyrics for me come secondary to how much I enjoy the song, so I honestly, I haven't looked up the lyrics. I don't know, maybe they're really bad, maybe that's why people hate it. But yeah, this record was just okay. I think maybe my main issue was that a lot of the songs did kind of sound the same. The whole album, the track listing does kind of just start to blend together at a certain point, and by the end, it just kind of keeps going through the motions, and especially with the final track being like 6 to 7 minutes long, it did kind of outstay its welcome, I think. But there were some highlights. I do really like the title track, Solar Power. It reminds me a lot of the song Mother Mother, at least the intro to it. Yeah, all in all, just an okay album, I thought. Alright, now talk about the EPs. There's only a few I got here to talk about. I checked out Misery Lake by Black Bear. Was not a fan of this one at all. The opening track was okay, I guess. It was definitely the best one, I think. But I'm really not a fan of his voice, and I found a lot of the instrumentals on this one to be super bland. From what I've heard from Black Bear, I think he's probably better off as a featured artist. Like, I really like the song he did with All Time Low. He was featured on that one. That's a really cool song. So, just honestly, man, if you're watching Black Bear, just do more of that. Just keep working with All Time Low. And I'll be happy. Songs I Stole. This is another Billy Cobb project. He's always making music. But this was an all covers EP. And this one I found to be alright. It kind of started off slow. Some of the covers he was doing I didn't care for that much, but it like got better as it kept going, and the last two covers he did I thought were pretty good, which were Be My Baby and Disorder. I thought those were both pretty solid covers. I did also appreciate his cover of I Want It That Way. And it's funny, on this channel, earlier before this whole EP came out, he released that song, and he sort of presented it as an emo cover of I Want It That Way, and he like put the Backstreet Boys members like in front of the backdrop of Weezer's Blue album, which I thought was hilarious. Meanwhile, new EP from the Gorillaz, and just okay. It's not even 10 minutes long, it's only like 9 minutes, so really there's like not much here to go off of. I remember liking the second track pretty good. First one was okay. Third track was alright. It was a live performance, which you might remember me mentioning before. Not a huge fan of live performances and studio recordings clashing together in an album. Yeah, it was just okay. Like I said, there's not much at all to go off of. It was just fine. Alright, so now we're transitioning from that, going to the movies section. I got around to checking out the SpongeBob movie, Sponge on the Run. I actually rented it on Redbox. Probably the first Redbox movie I've gotten in like at least 3 years. It's been so long. But I picked this one up and it was okay. I do actually like the last SpongeBob movie. I know not that many people liked it, but I thought it was good, and I do like the first one they made, of course. Probably the best out of the two, I think. This one was fine. Really liked the animation, surprisingly. I didn't think I was going to, even though I would have liked it to have been hand-drawn. Definitely some very impressive work with the CGI here. There were certainly some funny jokes and some funny moments. I think the first half is pretty good, and I liked Keanu Reeves in the movie. He was pretty funny. But it just got really cheesy, especially when we got to hear about the villain and what he's been doing with these snails, and it just certain moments that are just like, his motivations are just laughably bad. Yeah, I don't know. I'm curious to see if there is going to be another SpongeBob movie, how that'll turn out. We are kind of on a downward slope here with the quality of the 3 SpongeBob movies, but it was fine. Thunder Force, Netflix movie. By far my favorite part of this, I think, would be Jason Bateman in this movie. He has these like lobster hands, and just, yeah, I mean, he's basically playing Jason Bateman. You know how he kind of plays the same type of character in most stuff. But he's really good at being that character, and definitely the funniest part of the movie, I think. Yeah, just a lot of the jokes in this one fell flat. Melissa McCarthy, I think she's very talented. She's been really good in stuff I've seen before, like Bridesmaids, or I would even say St. Vincent. She's obviously really talented and can be very funny, but man, a lot of the time she just isn't. I'm sorry, but I just don't really care for a lot of the things that I see her in. And this one, unfortunately, just isn't an exception to that. Stowaway, a new Netflix original, not really new anymore, but it was earlier this year. I remember liking this movie quite a bit when I first watched it. I would say my feelings have decreased slightly, although I did still find it to be a pretty good movie. It was really well acted all around, and there were certainly some moments in this movie that were very intense, which, knowing that this does take place in space, you could probably figure out for yourself some of the things that are gonna happen. But all in all, it was executed well. I guess it's just not really something that I need to revisit, really. The Mitchells versus the Machines, another Netflix movie. This one is animated, and it was produced by Phil Lorde and Chris Miller. And I pretty much already knew I was gonna like this when I saw those two names. I'm a big fan of their work, and this movie was so good. I mean, definitely one of the best animated movies I've seen so far this year. I loved the characters, they were all so funny, and the whole family dynamic of this movie was very sweet and very touching, especially the father-daughter relationship. That one definitely got to me a lot. And the jokes, the comedy is just so fast-paced, like certain moments are definitely gonna fly over your heads if you're not paying attention very closely. The animation was really cool. Just all in all, a really fun movie. And if you haven't watched this yet, Netflix, definitely go check it out. Monster, this is another Netflix movie. I thought this was a pretty decent courtroom drama. Not really anything new, and that would probably be my biggest issue with it. It did feel a little bit derivative, but I felt that the performances were good all throughout, especially from the lead actor. Direction was good and a little bit unique, but kind of like Stowaway, this is just one that I don't really need to revisit again. In the Heights, this movie was honestly fantastic. I loved it. I don't know why. I totally should have reviewed this. What's wrong with me? Why didn't I review this? But yeah, this movie was great. I liked a lot of the music in it. The cast was awesome. And I love the story of this movie and the culture that is represented. I thought was really done well. Yeah, kind of drawing a blank right now. I did see it about 3 months ago. But really good movie, and one that I was surprised I liked as much as I did. The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It. I thought this movie was good, actually. You know, it didn't get very good reviews from what I remember, and certainly it's not on the level of the first 2 Conjuring movies, but I did still like it. Patrick Wilson and Vera Farmiga continue to be the best parts of this movie, is the heart and soul, really. So they were great, and the rest of the cast I thought also did a good job. And there were certainly some moments that I did find scary, but I will say that I do think it could have been just a little bit more scarier for my personal taste. But yeah, I liked it. I don't think it's bad. Again, definitely not as good as the first two, but I think it's a good, solid third movie, especially for it being a third movie in a horror series. I mean, it's certainly a lot better than I think most people would have expected it to be. Zola, a new A24 movie directed by Janiska Bravo, who does an excellent job directing this movie. Remember this name, Janiska Bravo. I'll put it out here for you guys to see. But I definitely gotta check out some of her more work because this movie was great. You got top tier acting from pretty much the whole cast. Coleman Domingo was a big standout for me. I also found the screenplay to be a very strong point from this movie. Bravo was actually one of the writers. Yeah, honestly, I don't want to say too much about it because I know it did fly under a lot of people's radars. It didn't make that much money, but a very good movie, and it's not going to be everyone's cup of tea. I can certainly see some people not liking this movie, most likely because of this one particular scene that does happen at a point during the movie. But if you're into these kinds of movies, if you're into more kind of indie filmmaking, definitely go check this out. I don't think you'll regret it. Space Jam: A New Legacy. Yeah, like I was kind of expecting, this is nowhere near to the quality of the original, which I do actually like. You know, like I said in my review, I do genuinely like that movie and I find it underrated. And this one, if I'm just being straightforward, was really bad. LeBron really isn't that good in this movie. He does an okay job emoting with his voice, but when you see his face, it's just like nothing. He's just completely emotionless. I think probably my favorite parts of the movie was when it was fully animated and had the 2D drawn animation. Those are probably the best parts. Yeah, a lot of this movie was just very stereotypical and generic, bland writing. And you know, you had John Cheadle, who, to be fair, is giving his all. He's really going for it with this performance, and I will praise him for that, but the character he plays, who's the villain for the movie, is so ridiculous. And again, the performance is fine, but the character was very lacking. You might think I'm being overcritical because it's just Space Jam, but I wasn't expecting it to be that good, so I'm not too surprised. I saw Jungle Cruise, and I think this movie was pretty good. I do understand to an extent why it's getting kind of mixed reviews, especially with how redundant it does feel. You know, people have been saying it's like Indiana Jones meets Pirates of the Caribbean meets The Mummy meets pretty much any other kind of adventure movie like that. And certainly you can make those comparisons, but I mean, even with that, I found it to be a pretty fun and enjoyable movie. I really liked Emily Blunt in the movie, and The Rock, Dwayne Johnson, he was so funny. He makes lots of pun jokes. Jesse Plemons was really good. I kind of wish they used him more, honestly. And you know, it's just a fun adventure movie. Sure, it is a little bit predictable, and like I said, definitely a bit redundant at times, but it's a solid, fun summer Disney movie. Just a good adventure story, just a fun time. That's really what it is. It's fun. Annette, this is an Amazon Prime original, and this is without a doubt one of the weirdest movies I've seen probably out of the last 5 years or so. This is not going to be everyone's thing. Most likely you will either love this movie or hate it, and I was in between. I thought it was okay. There were some things about it that I did really like, some things I didn't really like, or at least didn't understand very well. Adam Driver's great in the movie. Marion Cotillard's also very good. Yeah, I guess just the ideas they were going for were kind of hit or miss. Some of them I was really liking, but then they would present this other thing which I didn't like as much and thought was weird. Just lots of moments like that where I was like, no, I like where you were going here. Why do you have to do this now? I do have certainly a lot of respect for it, for taking those risks and going outside the box like that. Certainly there's going to be a lot of people who do like this, but probably a lot who don't as well. Maybe more, honestly. And then The Kissing Booth 3, probably my favorite one out of the trilogy. Not a huge fan of the first two, or this one, really. I mean, it's just like a typical, you know, teen rom-com Netflix movie, Netflix trilogy now. Although I did actually kind of like the themes that this particular installment touched on with regards to moving on from the past and sort of getting over your nostalgic feelings. Nostalgia has always been a subject that's always really hit home with me. So I did appreciate that they kind of touched on that. But that still doesn't change this movie from being not very good. If you want to actually go check out a Netflix rom-com teenage trilogy that I think is pretty good, I would recommend going to watch the To All the Boys I'd Loved Before trilogy. I do think that all of those movies are fine. And now talking about TV, there were technically 3 different shows that I watched. We have Loki coming out on Disney+, and I would put this smack dab right in between WandaVision and Falcon and the Winter Soldier. I did like it quite a bit and some of the ideas that it introduces to the MCU. It's gonna make the future movies very interesting. Definitely changes a lot of things coming up in the future. And yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed this. I like Loki himself. Tom Hiddleston continues to be great as this character. And I liked Owen Wilson in the show. Those 2 characters had a really good kind of buddy, I don't know if buddy cop is the right word, but I liked their relationship. They had a good friendship. This one kind of embraced the more campy routes that we saw in Thor Ragnarok, which I thought was cool. We have The Bad Batch. This was another Disney Plus series taking place in the Star Wars world. And I was very intrigued by the setup to this show as we got to see another interpretation on Order 66. So right away, just hearing about that made me want to check this out. And overall, it was fine. It's really just kind of a bunch of small little missions that these characters go on. And I did like the main kind of crew we followed, the Bad Batch, I guess. I thought Omega was a nice addition to this universe. She has a lot of charisma. All in all though, the show was it was fine. It was a fun show. There were certainly some episodes that did stand out and I really liked. But then there were others that I really didn't like and kind of felt like filler to me. I think it started off really well and it ended really well. And then in the middle, it was just kind of a mixed bag. So the show as a whole, I'll say, was just solid. I'm not really sure what other people think about this, but I imagine most other Star Wars fans probably feel the same way. And I do want to give a shout out to the series McCartney 321, which is a show I watched on Hulu. And this was super interesting, especially as a Beatles and Paul McCartney, and I guess Wayne's fan. As a fan of all 3 of those artists, I really liked some of the things they talked about here, some of the things that Paul and Rick Rubin discussed. So yeah, really cool show. I think if you're a fan of Paul McCartney or the Beatles, definitely give this a watch. So yeah, those are all the things that I watched or listened that I didn't get to review. I've been recording for a long time now, like my mouth feels so dry. I'm figuring by the time the next year comes around, assuming I still am doing this channel, that I will just want to do it every 3 months. So I'll have one more out from September through December, things I didn't review. And then starting next year, I'm just gonna do every 3 months. And yeah, that's how often you'll start to see these videos. But let me know if you enjoyed this video or if you've liked any of these things I've talked about, if you've seen or listened to any of them. Yeah, so that's gonna do it for now. I guess take it easy and I'll see you later. Peace out.